Welcome to Does It Matter? There's an old aphorism that says that you don't ever really know the person that you love. And in relation to any kind of relationship that's close or intimate, there's a certain degree of truth to that. I covered it in my objectification video where I discussed how we only ever really hold an image in our heads of the person that we're interacting with. We don't have telepathy, we're not walking around in their brain for any appreciable amount of time, so we're only building an approximation up of who they are. And that depends on how orthogonal our thoughts are and parallel to the person's actions and intent and motives, and how accurate we are in our understanding of all those things, and that's an entirely different kettle of fish. So yes, we don't always know people as well as we think we do, which kind of adds to the mystery of life, the joie de vivre, so to speak, because it allows for surprises. It's not a bad thing entirely, you know. So we're not like ants. We're not totally known as we are known. We're not like that. We're not a hive mind. But I think the more salient point here is not so much how well do you know the people that you love and the people that you care for, and how well can you know someone you might love in the future, or friends that you might meet and colleagues you might have to work with, and so on and so on. How well you know them is actually contingent to some degree on how well you know yourself. So how well do you know yourself? And what things are you willing to challenge about yourself? The more that you can challenge things about yourself, especially things that you hold as solid, that you're fairly certain about, those especially you should be challenging. Some of them will remain solid, most of the time anyway, and some of them might not survive too much scrutiny. Okay? And that yields a whole chestnut of treasures for you to explore contemplatively and meditatively, as to why you were telling yourself this story or narrative or this confabulation, and that can teach you a whole bunch about yourself. But the more that you understand how you work at the anthropological level, genetics, biology, anthropology, right up into the psychosocial aspects that are influenced by culture and nurture, the more that you can understand that, the more that you can have some agency over those processes, and the more easily that you'll understand other people. And it's one of my most intrinsic beliefs is that the more I come to understand other people, the harder it is to judge them, the harder it is to be angry for any length of time with them. It's even difficult to be disappointed in them. You can be disappointed that they're not better, same as you're disappointed that you're not better sometimes, but it becomes really difficult to hold them to sort of an unreasonable standard, because you start to understand the sort of biomechanics and psychomechanics that have led to where they are now, and how they're functioning now, and the process by which they're guided now. I suspect that the comforting narrative is beautiful because it gives you a fairly binary story. It's dualistic, good, bad. The grey, the indifferent is usually forgotten, and it gives you something to cling to. It's solid ground under your feet, rather than the grey goo of life, which is what we're really dealing with most of the time. We have to fight that. If you want to know others and you want to love others truly, then you've got to love the good, bad, and ugly bits of them. And it's the same goes for yourself. If you're not looking at yourself, you're not looking at your own mental and emotional skid marks, so to speak. You're not looking at your filth. You're not looking at your disappointing bits, your sad bits, your weak bits. If you're not looking at your angry, selfish bits, if you're not looking at those bits and you're not exposing them, even in areas that you are normally pretty proud of, your sacrosanct areas, then your ability to look at other people and see them for what they are is greatly reduced. And for me, I'm fascinated by people. I really find it important to understand what and who they actually are. That intrigues me more than ever. So I can't do that if I don't have a reasonably sound understanding of what's going on in this noggin, in this heart, and I don't keep a fairly rigorous handle on that, hold myself to as high as possible a standard in terms of honesty, in terms of integrity, and in terms of, fairly ruthless contemplation of everything, re-examination of my beliefs, constant re-examination of what I think is real and what I think is substantive, because every now and then it isn't. Every now and then a context shifts, and what works for most of the time isn't true in a given context, and I have to come up with a new one. I have to find a new one that fits, that is as accurate as possible as a descriptor of this reality. Sometimes circumstances change more broadly, and something I've believed about that fit in the world doesn't fit in the world anymore. It doesn't make sense anymore because the world itself on a broader scale has changed. That happens less often, but it does happen. So you've got to be able to reflect upon what is real and what isn't. And the only way to know that in other people, the only way to be able to appreciate those other people and love them as deeply as you can love anyone, is by understanding what the hell's going on inside you and why. And where did that come from? Is it anthropological? Is it a primeval atavistic instinct? Is it something a little more advanced? Is it purely a response to a recent or local environmental stimuli? Where is it coming from? You don't have to be a brain box. You don't have to be a psychologist or a brain surgeon to do this. You just have to be patient and careful about looking at it, and you have to be willing to be. You have to be a little bit brave, because some of the things you'll find out are not pleasant. Some of the things you'll find out about yourself are not pleasant. The single greatest barrier to revelation, to understanding, to truth, to our evolution as individuals, is fearing the loss of the comforting narrative, the comforting lie, the comforting story. Because we think in stories, we communicate in stories, we imagine in stories. And when those stories are shown to be inaccurate, it hurts. It's very painful. But if you can detach, step back, steel man another point of view, and walk around in that point of view just for a little bit, you can find things out about yourself that will forever improve your understanding of yourself. And that can be applied to any other human being. Not as well, because you're not in their heads, you're only in your head. But it's going to improve the quality of your observations, the quality of your subsequent communications. So give that some thought. Give it a little bit of thought. Oos.